Hello and what's up, everyone? Welcome to Doop on the Volley, Philly Sports Network's Philadelphia Union podcast. We're back here on a Sunday night, a day after the Philadelphia Union lost their first match of the MLS season. We're here to break it all down for you and preview the upcoming match on Tuesday night against Seattle Sounders, the game that was rained out over a month ago. So this is it's kind of an interesting time to be talking Union, and we have our buddy Paul here. Paul, how's it going?
I'm doing pretty good. Would have been better if results went a different way last night, but things go the way they go, and we move on.
Yeah, man, I feel that it's kind of a Philly sports trend right now, except for the Phillies. The Phillies are doing well, which is a good thing. We also have Jimmy King here with us tonight. Jimmy, how's it going, man?
It's going well. For the first time this season, obviously, we're doing one of these where we're not talking about being the only undefeated team left in MLS, and we can say the same for the second team as well, unfortunately. But I think there's still a few talking points to go over, a few milestones to touch on, and regardless of not getting 3 points at home on Saturday, I think being unbeaten through the first 7 gives you a little bit of leeway. Although if you ask some of the players on the team, they weren't as happy as maybe some people would be with the results. So still a lot to talk about, and I'm excited to jump in.
Yeah, and I guess with that, we'll jump right into the result. Philadelphia Union won RSL 2. It was a bit of a weird game. We were talking before just going live here. It seemed like Union really couldn't put a lot of things together. You saw RSL get a goal in the first half where Andre Blake got hands to try and save it, and he kind of pushed it up and it dribbled across the line, which is kind of uncharacteristic. Union equalized early in the second half on a Daniel Gazdag back heel where it looked like he might have been offsides on the buildup, but he wasn't. And everyone went crazy because he tied Sebastian Latou's record for most goals in Union history, which is really cool to see. But that was kind of dampered a little bit when RSL's left back, what's his name again? Contranis. He scored in the 89th minute. I think it was off of a second ball off a corner, if I'm not mistaken. The ball kind of came in and it bounced to him at the top of the box, and he settled it perfectly and then hit a golazo, and it was a perfect shot. But I guess I'll just throw it over to you guys. What are your main takeaways from this match? I'll start with Jimmy.
Well, I think the first biggest takeaway from me is for the 5th time in the first 8 games of the season, the Union conceded the first goal. Yeah. Another instance of a slow start, especially I know it's only the 3rd game at home, but it's the 2nd time in 3 games that they've given up the first goal. And I know Jim Curtin won't be too happy with that. If you look at that first goal, it came in a way that we kind of highlighted in our preview match or our preview episode. If you listen to that, obviously everyone knows that Christian Arango has the ability to score and change the game that way. But we also highlighted his ability to progress the ball up the field with his progressive passes and assists. And he did just that, breaking past I don't necessarily say I want to say that Jack Elliott mistackled there. It was kind of a weird bounce if you look at it. But regardless, Jack Elliott was very high up the field. And once Arango was able to get past him, he had acres and acres of space. And Elliott was tracking back really, really quickly. But Arango was just able to drift into that space and lay it off for Gomez. And I think that'll be one Andre Blake will want back as well. Just kind of popped, stung his palms, went straight up in the air and dribbled across the line. But yeah, exactly what we touched on in our preview episode of Arango being dangerous in multiple aspects. So that was the biggest thing for me right off the bat was Union's slow start to another match this season.
Yeah, and it's interesting. It was like almost everyone in the stadium knew it. They're like, you have to stop number 9. If you can stop number 9 on RSL, you're going to be okay. You're going to limit their chances. And yeah, it's just on those broken plays. It's like that's the reason, unfortunately, he's in the MVP conversation. You know, and it stung the Union there. Paul, what's your main takeaway from this match here?
So when we did our preseason predictions, I actually had the Union drawing to this match because of Arango. I thought he's too dangerous of a threat. You know, like you don't know what he's gonna do. He can score, like Jimmy said, he can pass the ball, create chances, and I know he created the one chance, but I thought the Union they honestly did a decent job stopping him. But it was just, I guess, pure luck. I don't want to use that term, but Katranis' goal, that is, as Jim Curtin said, that's like a 1 in 1,000. Like that's gonna happen rare. It was just a worldy of a goal to score, and it hurts to lose like that. But at the same time, it's not that I guess I wasn't disappointed because about the loss, I was disappointed. It's a confusing statement because they played well. They didn't play well in the first half at all. You could tell that they were on a bye week. That was my main takeaway from the first half. But the second half, they started to amp it up. They started to be the Union that we know them to be this season. They equalized, and then after that equalizer, they were on the attack for most of it. The rest of the second half, they had a few chances that they should have buried, which I assume we'll touch on in a little bit. But yeah, it was just I guess it was a disappointing loss. You don't want to lose at home, but when a worldie of a goal hits that, you can't really do much about it.
Yeah, it was kind of funny. My first thought when I saw it go in, I was like, oh, that must have been how Atlanta fans felt a few weeks ago when Kai Wagner did almost the same thing. It was sort of the same thing off a corner where it's like a second ball and you have a defender sitting out there at the top of the box, and you know, like defenders can score too. So that's another thing there. But what I want to go on to next is sort of how the team lined up in this match, because we saw a few players stay in the lineup that I don't think we were kind of thought we were going to see, mainly Ali Bedoya in the midfield. But Jimmy, I'll throw it over to you first. How do you think the team kind of stacked up with the players that were on the field from the start?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, if you listen to our preview episode, this wasn't the lineup that we exactly were predicting. I think most of us assumed it would be a 4-4-2 diamond, which was. But I think what we failed to remember is that, in part, I think there was a few things. One, the team has to start the same players that started against the postponed Seattle game on Tuesday, which threw a little bit of a wrench in plans, I would assume. In addition to that, Damian Lowe was not listed on the team sheet at all, as was Marcus Anderson. Interestingly enough, both of those players were starters in the Seattle game. So I'm going to pull it up while we're talking here, so we can talk about it when we talk about Seattle. But there are a few exceptions for things like that, and Matt Real and stuff. So you can kind of make some moves without having to sacrifice your substitutions, I believe. But then the other thing to consider, I think Mikel Uwa just became a dad again, and I think that maybe contributed to him not starting in the game as well. I have no idea what being a dad is like, but I would assume that going through the first couple of days of that is very exhausting. So I think that's probably in conjunction with him starting in Seattle, I believe, on Tuesday. That's probably why he didn't get the start on Saturday night last night. But like you said, there were a few surprises. I think the biggest one was probably Ali Bedoya, who I think played awful. I think he was kind of quiet in the first half. You could see there was a lot of urgency in the second half to kind of try to get involved and get things going. And he even got moved to right back once Nate Harriel came out of the game. And like 92nd minute, the dude's running around throwing slide tackles in and yelling at his teammates to put more effort in. And so if there's one thing that and we can talk about it in a little bit, his comments after the game, but if there's one thing you can't accuse Bedoya of, it's having passion for this team. It's undoubtable or undeniable, even if the performance or the fitness is slowing down on the pitch a little bit because of his age.
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely kind of shocked to see Bedoya in, but with everything that you said, Jimmy, about how the Seattle game is such a quick turnaround and you have to play that same 11 that played, I believe it was Quinn Sullivan and Jesus Bueno were the two shuttler midfielders for that game. So you're going to play, other players who aren't going to start for Tuesday. So Bedoya, fits that bill still. And like you said, he played a very good game and he got moved around, especially in the second half. He got out in wide spaces, helped in the attack. And then late on, when they were pushing to get a second goal after going down in the 89th minute, they moved him back to right back and brought on Chris Donovan for another striker. So yeah, it's just interesting to see. Paul, what were your thoughts on the lineup?
Like you guys, I really wasn't surprised with any of the decisions except for Bedoya. Blake, kind of, I guess, I don't want to say it surprised me because it's Andre Blake.
Right.
But at the same time, like, I didn't know if he was 100%, and I wouldn't have played him unless he was 100%. But I guess the biggest surprise, like you guys said, was Bedoya. But I know they lost, but I don't think Bedoya had a bad game.
Right.
He's really fit this new role that he's been put in. And yeah, that's really the only surprise I had with this lineup.
Just kind of touching on that Blake thing there.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was maybe not to everyone, but maybe to someone like us who watches things very intently and keeps up with how, kind of the ins and outs of the communication of how players are going through their rehabilitation process or whatever. But it seemed pretty obvious to me that Andre was not 100%. I was watching the game. I could see some limping and some kind of like, those faces you make when you're not too comfortable moving around. And then after the game, I don't know if this is the right time to bring it up, but I guess we should now. After the game, he was asked. I was not there. I was in the press box, but I did not attend the press conference in the mixer afterwards. I had some friends that had to get out of there and they were my ride. So, but per other people, their quotes and stuff being at the game, when he was asked about his health, Andre straight up just said, "I don't want to talk about it, to be honest." And that could just be him wanting to be more private about whatever he's going through, whether it's negative or positive. But I think when you put the two things together and, him being kind of questionable going into this game, I think you can kind of put together that Andre probably was not 100% going into this game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's really interesting too. I was going to bring that up next because we talked on the preview show a whole lot about Oliver Semla and how he's been a stud. Like he's been not only a great backup, but when he's been playing, like he's been on the team of the week for MLS a few times, either as the starter or on the bench. So like he's getting recognized when he gets those starts. So it's an interesting situation that the Union are in right now. Paul, do you have any other thoughts on that? Like I know with the Seattle game coming up on Tuesday, you're handcuffed with who you're starting, and it was Andre Blake, which I don't think anyone can be mad about. But is there almost like a controversy if Blake isn't 100%? Like, does Curtin have to step in a little bit more to kind of make that decision?
I do think so. I think it goes, but I guess both the medical staff. I mean, I don't really know how things are, like what Blake's saying regarding the situation. Like he could be saying I'm 100%, and then obviously as a coach or a manager, you have to believe your players.
Right.
But at the same time, if you can tell, I guess if Curtin can tell something's wrong, you would be like, Andre, like, I know like you're not 100%. I think it would be more beneficial for you to just rest up and heal and, like step in your foot. It's like we have a capable backup that we know we're confident in. So if you really do need the rest, we'd rather you do that.
I just want to share the rest of some of that quote that came.
Go ahead.
I think some of that stuff kind of doesn't get shared around as often. So people are listening, I think it's worthwhile for them to hear. But he was kind of asked. We've talked about how hard it is for a backup goalkeeper to be in that position of, coming in off the bench and playing a great game and then not starting the next game, or he is starting and then plays great and then not starting the next game. But Andre Blake was asked about kind of how difficult it's been for him to adjust to not starting every single game like he has year in and year out. And what he said was, yeah, it's tough. It is tough when it feels like you can't catch a break, but it is part of life and it is part of soccer. I have been going for 10 years strong. Maybe this is a little phase for me. I'll hang in there. I'll keep pushing. How long is it going to last? I don't know, but I will push through it, and hopefully it ends sooner than later. I'll keep pushing and do whatever I can to help the team be better and to win. Yeah, I mean, I think likewise of Ali Bedoya, this guy rides for this club. It makes me a little sad to see him go through that, because how dedicated he is. Like, we've talked about it. If he is training, if he can work his way through getting around on the field, he's going to say he's good to play. There are very few coaches in the league, or maybe even the world, that are going to say, no, you're not. You're going to sit on the bench, especially with his record in MLS. So, it was hard for me to kind of read and hear that from Andre. And I, likewise of him, I hope it is over for him soon. As good as Semla's been, I would love for Andre to be back in the net and feeling comfortable and healthy.
And he's a 3-time goalkeeper of the year. He's the only one to ever do that. So if he says he's good to go, I get it. And like you said, it is sad that he's kind of going through that. And he's been vocal even as of last year, being like, there's too many games. I've been playing too much, and it's been too much. And maybe this is that kind of catching up to him. And hopefully he'll just kind of get through it, and we'll see him, like you said, Jimmy, be that guy between the sticks, game in and game out, as the season progresses. But we do know that Semla's there to step up when Blake either can't play due to injury, or if he's away with Jamaica on national team duty. So it's just interesting to see that, because I think people were a little shocked when they saw Blake kind of go for that save on the first goal and he didn't push it away far enough. And that's just very uncharacteristic. It's interesting to see. One other thing I think we should bring up before we kind of move on to talk about Seattle is Daniel Gazdag's goal, and just the moment and the history of it. And I think it's gotten a little bit lost just because of the result of the game and everyone kind of being a little hard on that fact. But Jimmy, I know you've kind of been on this since last year. You've been tracking it and trying to get the correct number from a lot of different places. So what was it like to see him score that goal the way that he did, and just like the history of the moment? How did you take it in?
It honestly was a really cool moment. I have to I don't like to say I don't like to give myself a lot of credit, but like you said, Tim, I've been watching this for a long time, since last year, when he kind of went on a tear early in the season and had a handful of PKs in Champions League and in MLS and all sorts of stuff. And I got thinking, like, man, this guy's got to be like, at the rate that he's scoring, he's got to be at least somewhat close to getting in there in the next couple seasons. And when I started looking around to find those numbers, it was kind of hard to track down not only his, but Sebastian Latu's official number as well. So after reaching out to the club, I was able to get Sebastian Latu's official number, match it with Daniel Gazdag's official number, and since then I've just been kind of keeping track, and it's been kind of slowly gaining attention across the Unionverse, I call it, over the last couple months or so. But last night it was really awesome because to my right I was sitting with Todd from the Free Kick, Skylar, who I believe works at there's so many sports pages. I'll pull it up here. But Skylar, who writes at one of the websites that's been covering Union for a very long time, and then Kyle Albany from the one team we agree on. They were sitting next to me, and Paul was also up there as well. And as soon as the goal went in, all the three guys next to me looked at me and were like, that's the game, that's the record breaking tying goal, right? Like, and it was kind of one of those things where it was nice to see like this thing that I've been tracking and trying to bring attention to. Everyone kind of like look over and know that I've been keeping track on that and kind of confirming it and stuff. And it was a really great moment, and it was also a big goal at the moment too, getting Union back in the game. Obviously didn't end up the game didn't end up the way we wanted to, and I think both Jim Curtin and Daniel Gazdag probably will say that it's a good achievement, but at the end of the day, they want to win, and that's you're right, Tim. It probably does overshadow things a little bit, but at the end of the day, it's an incredible achievement. I think it's special that Sebastian Letou, although I don't know if he was in the booth last night because I think he was pouring beers over at Union Yards. I think it's incredible that he gets to watch it as a radio broadcaster and kind of see that torch be passed along. And I'm really excited to see how far Daniel Gazdag can raise that bar now in the next season and a couple of seasons, however long he's here. So it was a great moment, and it was a really nice goal from Gazdag, which it looked. I was for sure it was offsides when it happened. But they didn't check it. It looked like it was good, and it was a really great moment.
It must have been the slimmest of margins. I don't know. Just from where I was sitting in the stands, it looked like he was ahead of the defender. But hey, I'm not mad about it. Gazdag getting that goal. It's 56, right? That's the tally he's on now.
Yeah.
56. All right.
Across all competitions, and I think in part of the reason it hasn't gotten so much attention is I think most people put more importance on MLS goals.
Yeah.
And so to keep people updated on that tally, Sebastian Letou has 50 MLS goals and Daniel Gazdag has 45. So he's just right behind him there. And I want to say also, not only is it a great achievement for Gazdag, but he's kind of stuck it to some criticism over the last couple games, not only from fans, but we've talked about what his national team and former club manager said about his performances as well. And I think he's scored like four goals in 4 or 5 games since that. And all of them have been from open play, I believe. It looks like Daniel Gazdag is really enjoying his game right now, and I'm hopeful that he can continue that. And I am hopeful we get to see a record-breaking goal on Tuesday night at home.
Yeah, that would be really cool. And just to bring it up, you said Skylar was up there in the box with you. He writes for Union Nation.
Union Nation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I know there's so many different pages and different places, but I wanted to look it up for you too.
Thank you.
No problem. So Paul, I wanted to throw this over to you. So we talked about how Gazdag kind of got things level in the game, and you brought up too how Union kind of went on the front foot after that. But there were some missed chances I think we need to talk about. One being actually from Gazdag, where I believe it was Quinn Sullivan and Kai Wagner, maybe it was Jack McGlynn playing down the left side, and he played a ball into the box, and I think Gazdag was a little surprised that it got to him, and he drug a shot wide, and it was just not a good look. It looked like it was a sitter for him that he really missed. And then another one was right when Mikel Ua was subbed on, Nate Harriel did a great run, got into the box and squared the ball over, and it was just past his foot and just past McMath coming out trying to save it. So what is your take on the missed chances from the night? Is that going to be the main thing that kind of sticks in the Union for these next few days as they get ready to go against Seattle?
I think so. If you even put one of those chances away, you're talking a whole different type of game plan. You're either going away with a point, and honestly, if they did score one of those goals, if they're up 2-1, I think they're playing a little bit differently. So maybe even, they would play more defensive, up 2-1 at home. They want to get the win, even though the Union love to play the full 90. So maybe they wouldn't be playing all defensive, park the bus type stuff. But they would have been playing a little more defensive minded, and you maybe would have not seen that goal by Catranes. I'll be honest, when I was in the box and I saw that Gazdag missed, I I said to myself, like, that was the one. That
Yeah.
was the goal that needed to be finished. Just the moment him breaking the record with that goal, them giving the Union the lead, that would have, I think, settled the game, settled the match, on all honesty. And after that miss, I honestly really wasn't confident. I'll
Yeah.
be honest, I really wasn't that confident that they were able gonna get it done.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just like it's so tough because like in those moments, it's like all right, it's like a split second decision,
Yeah.
especially with the way that the Union play and how fast that they play in those transition moments with those crosses.
Mhm.
But it's just it's so hard, especially. I mean, I was in the stands last night, and when you saw Gazdag hit that ball and like it was nowhere near the net. Like there are people who are ready to like cuss him out and everything else, and like, oh, you're a bum, even though he just scored a few minutes before. And then the same thing happened with Mikel Ua when he was, stretching to try and get to that, and it was just past his foot. They were like, "Oh, like how could you miss that? You just came on," like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
I,
it's always funny like that. But yeah,
I had a really good view of the Gazdag chance.
hmm
And when I say good view, I mean I was perfectly in line with the pass.
hmm
I don't think he was expecting it to get to him.
I
yeah,
don't think so.
Yeah, I think he was just like genuinely surprised that it got through a very tight window and found his feet. And I think he just uh, couldn't get it out of his feet and into the net quick enough.
yeah. It's just like it's those fine margins, and like you said, Paul, like to lose on a golazo like that, you kind of have to take it the way it is. But I understand why all the players were frustrated in talking after the game. It's just it's a really tough loss to take, and I believe I'd have to double check this, and I don't have the stat in front of me, but I think this is only the third or fourth loss at home since 2021. It's something like
It's
that.
something like
They,
that.
they
Yeah.
rarely lose at home since just a few years ago now, which is crazy, and which is why it's great that there's another home game coming up here on Tuesday. So I think we should start switching gears to the Seattle game. And for those of you who don't know why the Union are playing on Tuesday, it's because back, I believe it was at the end of March, if I'm not mistaken, or I don't even remember when the game was, to be honest, because I think I'm still drying off from that game. Yeah, there we go. But it was a game that was played for 5 minutes during a downpour, and the referee called the game off because of how the water was on the pitch, and they rescheduled it for this coming Tuesday. So what will happen is that the teams will come back together, Seattle and Philly, and they'll have to play their same 11s, and they'll start the game from the fifth minute or whatever minute it was. It could be a few more, a few less. I don't remember off the top of my head.
I think it
But
was, but I'm not sure.
okay,
Yeah.
but yeah. So that's where we're going next. Another home game and another chance to get 3 points at home and get this bad taste of a loss out of their mouth. So Jimmy, I'll throw it over to you first. I know you were saying there were some kind of rules about this replay here that were kind of important. So I'll let you kind of go through them.
Yeah, absolutely. So because I was trying to find them. I'm gonna pull them up now, but
All right.
because the game was canceled, the teams do need to start with the same lineups again.
Mhm.
So while I pull that up, we can kind of go over the lineups here. But another interesting thing to note with that is that there are a few exceptions for players that are not on the roster for whatever reason, which is what
Okay.
I'm trying to pull up, which is applicable to Matt Rial, who's no longer on the squad for this season, and then potentially Damian Lowe and Marcus Anderson as well.
Yeah.
But just to kind of go over what that lineup was that we ran out against Seattle way back in March 9th. It was Andre Blake in net. I couldn't remember that last night if that was one of the games that he got to start in, but he was in in net. Kai Wagner was not in the lineup, so Nate Harrio lined up on at left back with Jack Elliott and Damian Lowe as the center back pairing, and Olivier Mbazo was on the right hand side. El Brujo was at the bottom of the diamond with Quinn Sullivan and Bueno as the two shuttlers. Or I think the only start that Bueno's had this season in MLS play. And then Gazdag was at the 10 with Marcus Anderson and Mikel Uwa at the forward position. And like we said, both Marcus Anderson and Damian Lowe were not involved in not only did they not play, but they were not listed on the team sheet at all yesterday. So that does raise some questions for kind of how and what Jim Curtin can do. But maybe while you guys are kind of talking over who we do know will be in the lineup, I can pull up kind of those rules and see if we can kind of figure out what maybe Jim Curtin might do if those guys aren't available.
Yeah, for sure. I think the thing that stands out to me with that Union lineup first is the back line. We've seen Nate Harriel come in and play left back before, and he does a very good job. So I'm not too worried about that. And then in the rare moments we've seen Olivier Mbaizo this year, he's looked very good, especially going forward. I know that's his bread and butter. And in the defensive side, he works hard, but sometimes is out of position too much because he likes to push forward. So I think that'll be something to keep an eye on Tuesday night there. Paul, what do you think about the midfield with Bueno, Sullivan, Brujo, and Gazdag?
I was thinking back, and at first I was a little confused on why we rolled out that lineup, and then you remembered me before when we were talking beforehand that the match was a few days before Pachuca, so they were resting certain players. So I guess in that point the mindset was let's just grind out like a draw possibly at home, maybe get an easy goal over top, and just grind out a draw and just prepare for Pachuca.
Yeah.
But now, I mean, I guess it'll be interesting to see Jack McGlynn finally get some rest.
Yeah.
Much needed rest. And I'm happy that Sullivan's back in. I love Sullivan in that right midfield spot.
Yeah.
I think that's his best spot. He's good at striker, but I feel like that right holding midfielder, I guess that's the term. It fits him very well. So I'm actually very excited to see, I guess, like a mix of like a defensive and attacking midfield.
Yeah, I think it works really well, especially when he's on the right side, because he can give the width that the formation doesn't usually allow.
Yeah.
I think, honestly, if we're being honest, his best position would be winger, but the Union don't use wingers. So when he's in that position of like that holding midfielder, when the Union are on the ball, he looks to get to the end line. He looks to go to the sideline and spread the field and kind of create a new dynamic that way. And with Mbaizo making overlapping runs with that, I think that would work really well, especially against Seattle. And then that brings us to the forwards of Marcus Anderson, who has played a little bit for the first team as a substitute, a little bit, got that one start in Portland, if I'm not mistaken, and then he would have gotten this start here in Seattle. And then Mikel Uwa, who's now been sort of a super sub the last few games. It'll be interesting to see Anderson get back out there. I'm assuming he's healthy because I think they just rested him because of the Seattle game. And also he played for Union too the past few weeks as well. He's been the starter up top for them along with Eddie Davis III. So that was maybe I think a precaution from Curtin and the team to just kind of rest him. And then it'll be good to see Uwa back up top and from the start, use his pace against the Seattle team that I know they were dealing with a whole lot of injuries when they came to the Union. So to bring that lineup back together, maybe when there's, other players who could have played, it's interesting. I know, I think Stephen Fry got a red card against DC, but he wasn't the starter back in March. So it doesn't really matter for that game, at least. So that'll be interesting to see what happens there. But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting Union lineup. It's very different. Like you said, Paul, it's because they were trying to plan for Pachuca away when they were still in it in Champions Cup. And we all know how that played out, which was not a great time. So we'll see if this team can get it done. Jimmy, have you been able to find some of those rules here?
Yeah, I have been. So like we've already said, they have to start with the same players that ended or that were playing when the game was postponed.
Mhm.
The exceptions being if players are injured
Mhm.
or have been traded or on loan, they can be replaced, I believe, by players that are on the official match roster of the postponed match.
Okay.
So I don't believe that makes Julian Carranza available for this game because
Hmm.
he was hurt.
Okay.
If I'm understanding the rule correctly.
That
Now,
would that be the same for Leon Flock then too? I'm assuming. Yeah.
I believe that would be the same for Leon Flock.
Mm.
Now, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to dig through that and see. I think that if in the case of Damian Lowe and Marcus Anderson, if they're not available, I think they have to be replaced by players that were on the match day roster.
Interesting.
Which in this case, the bench was Oliver Semla, Kai Wagner, Matt Rial. So I guess that's my question: is can he be replaced by someone that wasn't on it? But I don't think that he can be.
Hmm.
Jacob Glesnes, Ali Bedoya, Jack McGlynn, Jeremy Raffanello, Chris Donovan, and Ty Baribo. So I think if you're thinking about who would be likely replacements for those, well, Glesnes seems like that's the shoe in there, and then Marcus Anderson is probably I think it's probably Chris Donovan, or you put Quinn Sullivan up top and then move Jack McGlynn back into the midfield.
Yeah.
So I think those are the options that we're looking at if either of those two players are not available to play. Now there's also goalkeeper exceptions.
Okay.
I think that there's a little bit more leeway with goalkeepers just because you can't really move like your center back to your right back, or like you can do that, but you can't really move your right back to your goalie as easy. So, and you might have to call someone up from your MLS Next Pro team or whatever. So there are like a few exceptions there, but I'm hopeful that that it won't be an issue. Basically, what I'm saying is, if one of Blake or Semla were not available, then they would allow someone to take their roster spot who was not on the match day roster.
That's so interesting. Because I don't know, I just the match day roster to me, even if injured players were injured, I feel like they would still be on the match day roster but listed as injured. So wouldn't they I feel like they should be allowed to come back in if they weren't on a postponed game, but I guess it does make sense as to why they can't, because it's
Yeah, so now that's kind of the the thing I'm interested about is I want to know what Julian Carranza's status reported to the MLS was for that week.
Yeah.
Because I think that may have, because I think that you can be included in the team without being put on this graphic that the team put out, as long as it's under a certain amount of players. And let's see, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. They named 20 players. Is that how they go on the match day roster?
Usually I believe, but it's like a weird designation, because you have your roster that you would give in, and you would designate players that are injured or not fit, whatever we have to say for that. But now that it's postponed to literally, a month and a half later, it's like, well, they're not injured anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
So how do we go about that? I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what MLS does. I'm sure it's more of a FIFA rule than it is an MLS rule. But we'll have to see what happens with that. Yeah, that's interesting, because if that's the case, the spot that was held by Matt Real on the bench, it just means the Union would have one less player for that game.
That's what I was trying to see. It's hard. It's not the easiest thing to comb through. I'm sure you could only imagine, but I was trying to see if there was an instance for somebody that was on the bench being loaned out that's no longer on the roster at all, But I'm just not seeing that, to be completely honest. I'm going to send this page over to you guys so you can poke through your own time and see if you can find anything. But
Okay. Yeah, that's definitely interesting. We'll have to see how the Union kind of deal with that and line up. But just to look at Seattle and kind of keep it going and preview the game, they had Andrew Thomas in goal, which is not their normal Stefan Fry. I believe he was dealing with injury. Their back line was Xavier Arriaga, Nuhu, Alex Roldan, and Jackson Reagan. And then their midfield, Christian Roldan, Josh Atencio, and then up top was Raul Ruidiaz and Jordan Morris. So it's a pretty good team there for them from that game. Yeah, like I'll just throw it over to you guys first. I know I can't remember if we were all there. I know I was there for that game. But what was your if you can remember back to it, what were your thoughts going into this game against Seattle, a team that the Union don't usually play that much against? And Paul, I'll throw it over to you first.
Yeah, I wasn't able to make the match, unfortunately, but I was excited to just watch it because Seattle really doesn't. It's like it's similar to Real Salt Lake this past weekend. It's like it's a team that you rarely see the Union play, and I guess having them come over to Subaru Park would have been a cool experience. And of course, it gets rained out. But I'm trying to even think what my original thought was. It felt it's been a long couple months.
I know, right?
I guess I'll hand it off to Jimmy while I'm thinking about that, so we can keep it going.
Fair enough.
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I think at the time, I think this actually. I think we were going into this a little bit nervous because if you remember, this was coming a couple days before the second leg of the Pachuca match.
Yeah.
That's why there was some rotation in that squad, and that's why that starting lineup looks a little funky to some people. If you're used to watching this Union team and just MLS play. And so I think we were kind of going into that game a little bit nervous. Just for the fact of we knew there was going to be some rotation, and then post the postponement, I think we were kind of looking at it as a little bit of a gift from God that we were getting some rest before Pachuca. We all know how that panned out down in Mexico in the second leg. So I think we were kind of nervous for the first edition of this matchup. But I think going into the second one, I think looking at Seattle's form going into 9 games through the season and kind of what the conversation was around their press media circle this weekend, I think you have to look at it as a game that Union need to take advantage of and get 3 points against a really struggling team right now.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that. Just looking at how Seattle has been doing, they only have 1 win on the season so far. So that's
Wow.
And it was a 5-0 win at home against Montreal. Other than that, it's been what 4 losses and 3 draws for them. So
Interesting.
it's
5 losses.
I'm sorry, 5 losses.
Yeah, and that 1 win, it was a good win. I think they won like 5-1. But it was against Montreal, like you said, and Montreal started the season with 6 consecutive road games because they don't have a place to play in Montreal while it's like 4 degrees outside. So they start the season on the road, and that was it may have not been the last game of that road stretch, but it was one of the last games against a really tired and not very well or experienced, well put together or experienced Montreal side. So even their 1 win isn't something to really talk about with a lot of pride if you talk to or listen to Seattle. And yeah, I mean they're not in good form right now. Like I said, the conversation around their press circle right now is kind of surprising. Brian Smetcher was asked about his job stability this weekend. The guy won the CONCACAF Champions League a few seasons ago, so that shows you how how drastically different things are from just I think I'll put my hand up. I said they might win the Supporters Shield this season, and
Yeah.
they're closer to winning the Spoon than they are even sniffing the Shield right now. So tough times for Seattle, and I think Union have to take advantage of that.
I was just going to bring that up, Jimmy. The fact that Seattle is 13th in the West, like that never happens, and they're third bottom in all of MLS with just 6 points from 9 games. That's unheard of.
Yeah.
What were you going to say, Paul?
Something I did want to bring up. I really think the Union need to take advantage of. So if you take out that 5-1 win that Seattle had against Montreal, in 8 games this season, Seattle have only scored 5 goals.
Mm-hmm.
And I really think with them coming into Subaru Park after a rough performance in DC, I think that's something that you have to get an early. You have to, I guess, get that rough start that the Union have been having just out of the foot, get a goal early on in the first half, and then just pounce on them from there.
Yeah.
So this is a really good opportunity for the Union basically to get rid of what happened on Saturday night and just clear it fast.
Yeah, and I think I didn't get to bring this up when we were talking about RSL, but I really want to bring this up, and I think this is a good position and point to bring this up. I think the team is going to be ready to go on Tuesday and want to come out strong, and part of that is some comments made by their captain Ali Bedoya after the game, quoting I'm going to quote a tweet that Jonathan Tannewald from the Inquirer put out. This is from Ali Bedoya after last night's match. It's a little bit long, so bear with me, but man. And Paul, I'll talk about the quote, and then you can talk about experiencing it because you were there and you can talk, kind of his morale and his energy around what he was saying. But the quote goes, I'm glad you guys, the media people, took a lot longer to get here because I had time to cool my head a bit. But yeah, I'm freaking pissed, man. We should never be losing this type of game at home. I mean, honestly, 2 big freaking chances that we should be putting away in the box that we should be finishing. So that's disappointing that we don't score those chances. And then they have 2, whatever. One was a good goal. Credit to him for striking the ball the way he did. We just weren't good enough in clearing our lines and clearing the ball. And the first goal they scored also just kind of a broken play where we didn't win the first tackle, didn't get close to the guy who shot it, and unfortunately it went in the goal. But I'm really frustrated because I wanted to keep this streak going, and it was there for the taking. Tonight at home, second half, we did more than enough to win this game, and we came out losing. So, I mean, tomorrow is a new day. We've just got to keep looking on and keep kicking on, and we have another home game. We've got to win our home games, and I'm pissed that we lost at home tonight. I think there's like 2 really big things there. He's not calling anyone out by name, but he's directly calling out a number of players. Right off the bat, two big freaking chances that we should be putting away in the box. We've talked about those. Daniel Gostog and Mikael Uwa. Ali Bedoya doesn't care about your record tying goal. He cares about winning games, and he showed that in his quote right there. His next line, the first goal, it was kind of a broken play where we didn't win the first tackle, and didn't get close enough to the guy who shot it, and unfortunately it went in. I think that is calling out both, like we said, Jack Elliott not making that tackle in the midfield. And I don't necessarily think it was as much at Andre, but I think there is a little bit of steam towards Andre in that as well. And then, I mean, I think there's just I think it was one of the most surprising things I've ever seen come out of the Union locker room in my short 2 years of covering the team. But Paul, I want to hear your side of it and how you took it in and heard it from him himself in the locker room.
Yeah, so similar to you, this is my second season covering the team, but last year I was more of a I was in this 140, so I didn't really get to venture into the locker room at all. So when we were leaving the seats last night, Todd from the free kick, he was talking to me a little, and he was like, the players are they're, I guess, I don't remember the exact quote, but I remember it was like the players are, I guess, are a little different, especially the ones that want to stay after a loss. And I was like, yeah, I feel like, I mean, I guess for especially covering the Union at home, you really don't see the Union lose at home. So I was like, oh,
Mhm.
this is going to be like a whole new experience for me. It's like first time I've seen the players lose at home. And we went through Curtin's press conference like normal, and then we went into the locker room, and you could just you had the kids like usual, doing the activities that the kids did. They really don't know what happened, but the players, you could tell that they were not happy with the result. We went up to Bedoya the first time, and he was speaking quiet, but the word that I heard most of the time was pissed, 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 and I was like, oh shoot, like this is crazy. Like I've never expect. I guess you could say I guess I was shocked with the tone that but at the same time it was Alejandro Bedoya. He's very passionate about this club. He's very passionate about the badge. So I guess you can say I really wasn't shocked. It was more the fact that um I was just like, wow, like I guess this is what it's like to see when the team loses. And to be honest, it was something I did enjoy seeing. This is what you want to see out of your leaders in the locker room after a tough loss like that.
Yeah. Honestly, for me, like hearing the quote, like hearing how you experienced it, Paul, like that just makes me more confident about Tuesday's game, about
Yeah.
how the team is going to respond because I think we've seen it in the past with a few games that they've lost on the road, like Pachuca being the big one. Obviously, it wasn't good enough. They were played off the field and they were humiliated. I don't think that this game was a humiliation, but I feel like that their response to it is sort of the same thing, and that they're going to want to get on the field as quick as possible and remedy that. And I think Bedoya's words kind of stand to that, and it's going to kind of like decipher into the locker room, and the players are going to
Yeah.
really feel it. Which is at this point, I don't think it's a pressure. I think it's more of like it's going to get them up for the game, and really be up for it on Tuesday night. And with that, I think we should kind of get into our part where we kind of talk about how we think the team will do on Tuesday. So we know what the lineup's going to be already. Jimmy, I guess I'll throw it over to you. Is there kind of one player you think is going to stand out and really show out after a loss on Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see Michael Uwa start, and I haven't seen him start the last two games. I also think that a big reason why we're not talking about Union still being undefeated and talking about their resiliency and coming back last night is that they don't usually look great in the final third after a break.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a scapegoat from me. Maybe that's like a homer take, but it's true. Like they don't seem to ever play super well right off of break. And so I'm hoping that they can just kind of shake those cobwebs. They have that was the first of 7 of the next 10 at home. So we've got 6 of the next 9 at home, I guess now. Which is even more reason that you wanted to get off to a good start with 3 points last night. But regardless, I think they'll be looking forward. They'll want to come out strong. And I think Mikael Uwa is going to be one of those people that's just kind of jonesing to get his name back on the score sheet. And especially after missing that chance last night to kind of put the game away. Maybe not away, but put Union in front and in position to put the game away last night.
Yeah. Paul, I'll throw it over to you. Do you think there's another player that could stand out and help the Union get to 3 points again?
Yeah, so originally I was going to say Ura, especially after the comments that Bedoya had. So
Yeah.
I guess the other player I'll add is Gazdag.
Yeah.
When Bedoya talked about the 2 big chances, I think everyone knew what 2 big chances they're talking about. And when the leader of the club says something like that, it echoes down into the other players around the locker room. And they realize like, oh, I know he didn't say it was me, but I know it was me. And that's just going to motivate them to perform better in the next match, not miss that opportunity if it's given to them. And then I know it's not on his mind, but the next Gazdag goal will be the record breaker.
Yeah.
And personally, I would like to see that in person rather than watching on TV on the road.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go with Gazdag. Yeah.
All right. I mean, I would be down to see a fired up Mikael Uhre and Daniel Gazdag go against the Seattle team that has not looked good at all this season. And with that, I think we need to get to our on the volley takes for this upcoming game on Tuesday. I'll go first, and I'd say that I know we've been talking about this, but I think that this game against Seattle will be the first quote unquote complete game we see from the Union. I think that with Bedoya's comments, with how the team has sort of responded to losses in the past, and with Seattle coming in on not great form, the Union are going to be fired up. I say that they win this game 3-0. And I don't think we've really seen much of that this season from them where they keep a clean sheet and they score goals. But I think that they're going to be fired up and that they're going to be able to do that. I'd say that Ua and Gazdag both score. So I want to see them kind of throw it back at Bedoya, which would be fun. It would be a good thing. I think that's what Bedoya was really trying to do instead of just calling out. Was just like, hey,
Yeah.
we want to see more from you, type of thing. So I think that's going to happen, and I think it starts another undefeated streak, like Jimmy said, with 6 of the next 9 games at home. Like this is the chance in the season where it's still early enough that you can rise up the standings, but it's going to lead into the summer where it's really the heart of the season and where teams really get judged as if they're good or not. And I think that this starts another undefeated run here this weekend, or this midweek, because it's a midweek match. Jimmy, I'll throw it over to you for your on the volley take.
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys have hit the nail on the head perfectly in regards to Ali Bedoya's comments and how that's kind of what you want from your captain. And it's kind of a shame that he's not going to be able to start in this game. And not that I think he should, but it seems like, he's so fired up. It would be interesting to see him out on the field. But likewise, or I guess before I move on from that comment, I want to say that I think that is a huge it's another thing pointing to the jump in expectations around this team and this club. Started 7 games in a row unbeaten, the only team in MLS, and the captain is giving it to people. Losing 2-1 to an absolute golazo in the 90th minute.
Against the first place team in the West. They're in first place in the West now.
Was their 11th point on the road this season. They're road dogs. Boot leader, maybe the leader for the MVP race right now. And the expectation still is to win at home. And again, I think that points to where people inside this team want this club to go, whether other people in the front office put those same ambitions forward in how they manage the squad. But I think if we're talking about this game in my on the volley take, it's not. I agree with you guys that I think we're going to see one of Gazdag or Uwak get on the score sheet. But my on the volley take is that I think we're going to see a header from a set piece from one of the center backs as the second goal. I'm going 2-0 Union, and a goal from one of the center backs. That's dependent on who starts. I would say Damian Lowe if he's in that starting 11. But if he's not. I'm going to say Jacob Glesnes.
All right. And Paul, over to you for your on the volley take.
Yeah, I completely agree with both of you guys. I think they're going to end up getting a clean sheet this match. I think with the form that Seattle is in, and just they want to respond to Bedoya's comments and prove like we're better than what we did on Saturday night, when you can respond very quickly and prove that we're one of the top teams in this league. I'm going to do a 2-0 win, similar to Jimmy, and then I'm going to go Gazdag is going to get the record-breaking goal in front of the home supporters, which I think will be incredible thing to see, just with the way the fans are at our club and everything about that. And then I'm going to do if he plays, I'm going to pick Marcus Anderson to score.
Okay. I like it. Yeah, it's really interesting just to end on this. The quote from Bedoya, I think, is just sticking out to me a little bit more right now, of just how how important he is to this team. Like if this player wasn't here, if he didn't get his contract picked up for this year, I don't think the team would be able to respond well after a shocking loss in the last minute of a game.
I,
You know? Like,
no, Tim, you're so right on that. I was trying to think literally a few seconds ago of who else on the team other than Andre Blake would be outspoken like that and as transparent about their frustration as Ali Bedoya was there in a moment where the team needs to hear it. Sometimes hearing it from the coach isn't enough. Sometimes you need to hear it from the person standing next to you in battle and the person you look up to saying, man, you guys were not good enough tonight. And I think like we've touched on, I'm hopeful that that'll get to them and kind of get them the kick in the ass that they need to come back on Tuesday strong and get it done and get 3 points. And like you said, hopefully go on another run.
Yeah. Yeah, well, look at us. Ali Bedoya's got us all fired up. We're ready for this game on Tuesday night. I hope you all are as well. Thank you again for all y'all tuning in. Go ahead and follow us on Apple, Google, and Spotify. These will be in audio version as well. So if you're listening to us later on, hi, how are you doing? But this is the end of the show here for tonight. Union back in action on Tuesday, and then maybe we'll get another podcast in this week before the weekend match where they go down to DC. So until then, we'll see you guys next time, and have a good start to your week.